I'd like to introduce our senior ambassador of the group, Ambassador Malalasekera from Ceylon. He'd like to express the feeling of the UN.
Mr. Vice President, Mrs. Johnson, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it has been given to me as a very great privilege indeed to say a few words to express our very warm and very sincere, quite heartfelt gratitude at the extremely generous and kind reception that has been accorded to us during this visit of various members of the United Nations missions to this great state of Texas. Speaking personally for myself, I had heard so much about the generosity, the hospitality, and the warm-heartedness of the people of Texas that I had always wanted to see it. And although I had been in this country many times, beginning from 1949 onwards, until today, until yesterday, the opportunity never came my way. And that is why I am so extremely happy that before I have to leave my present assignment at the United Nations for another assignment in the near future, that I should have had this occasion of being in Texas and seeing for myself that what I had heard is not 100 part of what the fact about Texas is. It has been such a heartwarming thing, such an encouraging thing for us to come here and meet, first of all, the Vice President and his most distinguished and charming lady and his family, and all others of you Texans who in one way or another have contributed your share to make this state one of the greatest places in the world. A little while ago, we heard the anthem of Texas being sung. And I believe one of the lines of that said that the eyes of all Texans were on Texas the livelong day. Well, I want to say today, it's not only the eyes of the Texans who are upon you the livelong day, but the eyes of the whole world, because we here, members of the 30 countries, come from the United Nations. We come from all over the world. I come from Ceylon. There are representatives who come from Nepal, from Japan, from various parts of Latin America, from Africa and Asia, from all the 5 continents, and therefore the whole world is looking at you, and the whole world are full of admiration and gratitude at your generosity, your hospitality, and your kindness. Mr. Vice President, when the heart is full, it's very difficult to say something adequate. Today, not only are our hearts full, but our stomachs are also full. Because the wonderful feast of food that you gave us is something that I think we've never had the like of it before. We've heard so much about the barbecue. We've eaten barbecue in New York, but nothing like the barbecue we ate today. Thank you very much indeed. There have been talks every now and then about wanting to move the United States from New York. I'm one of those who agree that if it could be done, it would be very nice. Not for anything else, because the air of New York is so full of the smoke of gas. And that is not very conducive either to our health or to clear thinking. And now that we have savored the air of Texas and seen how clean and invigorating it is, if you could manage to move the United Nations from New York, please bring to Texas. Because here you not only have the spaciousness needed for the expanding United Nations, but you also have all the features which would make the United Nations the great organization that it deserves to be, and that it is going to be. Because as you were saying, Mr. Vice President, a little while ago, here you have people from many parts of the world living together in understanding, in friendship and amity. And you have given to the world what could be achieved by cooperation, by helping each other, and also by self-help. So I think if you could get, and then you are the kind of person, if there is anyone in the world who could accomplish a thing like this, moving the whole of that, moving the whole of that building here, because we don't want to lose that building. It's a wonderful building. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure my colleagues would not want me to finish my remarks without adding one word of thanks, one particular word of thanks to Mrs. Johnson. We have, in the culture which I myself represent, a saying which says that a man's wife is his Shakti. That is a Sanskrit word. Shakti means his strength and his inspiration and the angel of his good fortune. And I think, Mr. Vice President, you have been extremely lucky. I think it is correct to say we have had many occasions to watch Lady Bird Johnson in action, and we have seen what a wonderful helpmate you have in her. Nobody who meets her can fail to be charmed by her kindness, by her warmth, and by her ability. We had her act as guide in our tour around the ranch, and I'm sure even you did not know yourself what a wonderful ranch you have. She explained to us. So we want to say thank you very much indeed for all the kindness you have showered upon us. And may every blessing be yours, Mr. Vice President, and the people of Texas. And you can be sure that the experiences that we've had during our visit here will always be in our memory as among the pleasantest and the happiest memories that we shall carry from this country. Thank you very much.
One of the great treats of our life was to have a camel driver come here and visit us. The president of Pakistan had visited us shortly before, and then the camel driver came and we gave him a barbecue and we took him over to the lakes. And long about sundown, the sun was getting ready to set in the west. Why, one of our most beloved and the man who's done more probably for make us proud of Texas than nearly any person here today, Dr. Frank Dobie was there. Another great American who's passed on, a three-room house weighing 12 pounds before the doctor got it.
Mr. Aguirre, Uruguay. Mr. Karat, the United Arab Republic. Mr. Barras, Brazil. Mr. Moody, Canada. Mr. Karakula, Turkey. Ambassador.
Some people sometimes in jest say Lyndon's really moved up in the world. He's gone up the road a half a mile. But our standard of living and our per capita income when I was a boy is not greatly different from the standard of living, the per capita income in a good many of your countries now. When I grew up and rode a donkey 4 miles to school, we didn't have these electric lines. We hadn't dammed these rivers. We didn't have the irrigation pipe to water our fields. We didn't even have the beautiful thoroughbred cattle. We pumped our water out of a well or drew it out with a chain. And that's how far you can come and how far we have come in 50 years by all of us putting our shoulder to the wheel and giving our best. Nations who contributed so much to the good feeling that honored us as President, Dr. Walter Prescott Webb, and they made the camel driver's visit so enjoyable and so understanding. And Dr. Dobie about sundown said, Mr. Vice President, said, I'm getting up in years a little bit and I don't like to drive after night. And if you'll just tell the camel driver, I'm going to have to edge on down toward Austin. So I told the camel driver, and the camel driver said, well, Mr. Vice President, you tell Dr. Dobie that it's all right for him to go. We'll miss him for dinner. We wished he could stay. He's been quite stimulating all evening. But tell him I don't agree with him that he's getting old because every gray hair in his head represents wisdom. And the interpreter said, he went on for about 2 minutes, and Dr. Dobie scratched his head and said, well, hell, if that's the way he feels about it, I'll just have another drink and stay. I want to present the one and only Dr. J. Frank Dobie and his ugly wife. Friends and distinguished guests, Lady Bird and I are extremely proud and quite honored to be host to such distinguished people on this occasion. This morning my phone rang at 6:30, and it was one of my neighbors up the road and said, if it rains today, we'd like for you to use the church for your barbecue. I went back to sleep, and 30 minutes later, a Baptist preacher called me from San Antonio and said, I hope that you will ask the distinguished ambassadors and representatives of the 30 countries that we are welcoming to our state to drop in for our services if they have occasion tomorrow. I picked up a wire a little later on in the morning from a group from Corpus Christi, school children. They are members of the 8th grade. And they said, please, please stop the Fiesta Parade so we can see those ambassadors from the 30 countries. So really, truly, you make us proud and you do us honor with your presence. Lady Bird and I have traveled in more than 30 countries. We have come to learn and respect the peoples of those countries that we have exchanged views with during the last 2 or 3 years. I was born down the road here about half a mile. I have a little memento for our distinguished guests. We not only recognize that you've been in Texas long enough to act like Texans, but we want you to look like Texans. And most of you did this morning. 1 or 2 of us almost fell off a time or 2 in our ride. But when I get through presenting you what I have for you, I think you can ride any bronco in this country. Before I do that, though, I want you to know just 2 or 3 of the 200 or 300 most distinguished people that we have here today and that we're especially proud of. First of all, I want you to meet the distinguished former member of the cabinet from this state, President Eisenhower's cabinet, the wise and able and lovely publisher of the Houston Post, Ms. Ovita Hobby. And a distinguished worker of the United States. Now, everyone here is really distinguished. I guess the most distinguished ones, my neighbors on each side of the road. Cousin Oriole down here and Mr. Hodges up there. But I could spend all day introducing speeches, and I noticed that Cactus very carefully said entertainment will come a little later on when you're facing the river. So he didn't include me in the entertainment, and I'm not going to ask your indulgence for but a moment. We are very proud of a little girl who finished Dripping Springs High School down the road, won the Sam Johnson REA scholarship to Washington, came up there and spent 3 months, 90 days, and decided she really wanted to do something with her life, and she now has 75 hours of straight A's at the University of Texas, and she's elected to Phi Beta Kappa last week, Jane Morton. And I think that maybe that Lou Hill's got a B or two, but she is the sweetheart of TCU. Stand up, Lou. That's my friend, Mr. M.J. Anderson from Austin, there at the table. I'd like you to meet him. And the distinguished son of a distinguished father, Mr. John Foster Dulles, Jr., and his charming lady, Ms. Foster. If I could, would you bring me... Where's the little lady that's going to? You want to call off the names and ask the ambassadors to come down. This is symbolic of our state. It's a hat that's produced in our state. It not only makes you feel like a Texan and act like a Texan, but it makes you look like a Texan. And we're so proud of your visit here today that we want you to take this with you with our best wishes.
Ambassador Malalasekera from Ceylon.
Call on next. So the next one.
Ambassador Oscar from Guinea. Ambassador Tarazi from Syria. Ambassador Nur Elmi from Somalia.
In this state, we have 12, 13% Americans of Mexican descent. We have 12 or 13% Negroes. We have a substantial percentage of Americans of German descent. When I pick up my party line here at the ranch, I hear more German than I do English. Across the river, I went through the 3rd grade in German, really before I could talk English very good. I'm sorry I don't remember it. I remember the ugly words, but I didn't remember the good ones. But we have a substantial Czech population. We have a substantial French population. We have a substantial Lebanese population. And we're very proud that our forefathers came from all the lands of the world. And we have tried to demonstrate what we can do by recognizing the principles of freedom which our government operates, and try to set an example of friendship and learning to understand and live together and work together. There was a great English writer one time who finished reading a book and threw it on the floor and said to his old maid sister, "I don't like that man," speaking of the author. And she said, "Do you know him?" And he said, "No. If I knew him, I would like him." And I don't think that's necessarily true always, but we do gain a great deal by knowing each other and exchanging viewpoints. And I said to one of the distinguished representatives of the United Nations that I wasn't quite sure I could be here today because I did have another engagement. But this was such a rare opportunity for me and my people, particularly the political leaders and the civic leaders and the church leaders of this state, that I just finally told the secretary to give them the Baptist preacher answer. And they said, "What was that?" And I said, "Well, a federal internal revenue agent called up the Baptist preacher and said, I want to know if it's true that Mr. Dobie contributed $500 to your Baptist church last year." And he said, "Who did you say you were?" I said, "Well, I'm a Federal Internal Revenue agent." And he said, "Well, all I want to do is confirm whether he contributed $500 as he claimed on his income tax." And the preacher said, "Well, he either did or he will." So my secretary told him that I had either accepted the invitation or I would accept it. Before I yield the floor, I want to introduce some of our most enlightened and youthful and progressive state officials. I know I'll overlook a good many of them, but I remembered 2 or 3 that I'm especially proud of. One is our Attorney General and his wife, Mr. Wagner. And my devoted friend of many years, the former ambassador to Luxembourg, Earl Lester.
Ambassador Botha. Ambassador Botha from South Africa. Ambassador Volio, Costa Rica. Ambassador Chakra.
Representatives of 30 countries, just come on down here and we'll call your name and you'll be here.
Jacobides, Cyprus. Mr. Cookman, Mauritania.